everybody? Thanks for joining in to the Polo Show. I'm joined here with a special guest. It's Rohan. Technically, I guess we got two of us here today. But we're going to dive into some 49er preview for week 4 and also talk about all this Jimmy G, Kyle Shanahan stuff going on right now. Got some fresh quotes to talk about, so we'll get right into that. So, let's go.
Gonna throw it, wide open, touchdown, 49ers! And to Draymond. Hurry! Watch Stafford go deep and picked off. Were able to do week 3 in that matchup. Toss to Jones and big middle linebacker Fred Warner made the stop.
Hello, once again, everybody. Welcome into the Polo Show. I'm joined today by Rohan, the man, the myth, the legend. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. And before we start, got to give a quick shout out. I know who made this, but got to give a quick shout out to my guy, Roscoe's. Everybody knows Chris, the best editor, really the best guy with all this overlaid layout kind of stuff. He made one for me today, a thumbnail. Appreciate him a lot. And you already know his work's going to be fire when he comes up. But quick plug for him. He's probably like sitting on the couch just getting ready to salivate over USC tomorrow. But
Yeah.
Chris, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, no, Roscoe's definitely just watching some Talanoa Hufanga highlights right now in bed, waiting to drive to a high school football game that he has no association with at all whatsoever. But yeah, I don't know. That's what you do when you're 45 years old and a USC fan. I don't even think he went to USC, actually, now that I think about it.
No, he doesn't. He just recruits for the team for no reason.
Yeah, no, he goes and pulls up with his USC visor. But listen, if you have Twitter and you don't have a header made by Roscoe yet, hit him up. He makes the best stuff for real. But we're going to dive into some Niners today. And we literally just had that press conference not too long ago that just went up. And I know a lot of people are watching it or have their 2 cents on some things that were said. And there was a quote in there from Jimmy G. So he sacked himself for a safety and threw a pick 6 on the same play on Sunday night.
No, he didn't. No, the official scoreboard says only safety.
Okay.
Jimmy Garoppolo saved the 49ers from 6 points.
Let's rephrase this. Kyle Shanahan self-sacked him for a safety. We'll say that, according to some people. But anyways, after the game, he was making excuses, and people have been going back and forth. Was it a bad play call and all this? And he was just asked about it because Kyle, in a presser earlier this week, said that he put him in a tough position on that play with the play calling. And when Jimmy was asked about what Kyle said, when he basically took blame, Jimmy said that he gives him credit for being man enough to say that. What is your take on that quote, Rohan, from the Niners' backup quarterback?
So before I go, let me just say the entire
Yes.
quote because the second part is as interesting as the first part. He said, I give Kyle a lot of credit for being man enough to do that, meaning to admit that he put him in a tough spot. But I do the same to him too. If I mess something up, I'm willing to say that it was on me, and that leads to a good relationship and a good team. Now, the interesting thing is, like Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't really care about I don't really care about the Twitter video, the viral video as much. Like it's an interesting headline for sure. I don't really care about what he said about Kyle Shanahan and that kind of thing, if it was intended at Kyle Shanahan. But the part where he says that if I mess up, I'll admit that it's on me. It was interesting because the first thing that he asked when asked about his poorest performance post game against Denver was an excuse. I haven't been with these guys in a while. I'm getting reacclimated, and it's a fair point necessarily because Garoppolo, it's true. He wasn't given a playbook in the offseason. He hasn't been really the starting quarterback up until preparation for this week. But overall, it isn't admitting that you did wrong, right? It's admitting an excuse in a way. And so it'll be, I'm very interesting to see kind of where Jimmy Garoppolo is trying to go with this, because last week, ahead of the Denver game, he alluded to wanting more freedom. He alluded to wanting to be a little more of a gunslinger, meaning he wanted to hit downfield throws. This was obviously after we saw in the Seattle game, him throwing that 40-yard deep out to Brandon Ayuk, which Ayuk couldn't corral. Well, Kyle Shanahan gave him a good game plan, in my opinion. He dialed those open downfield throws. Garoppolo either did one of three things. He either read the read and bypassed the read, he either missed the read altogether, or he missed the throw in general. First play, I think it was the first drop back from Jimmy Garoppolo. Brandon Ayuk is on the left side. He's in a single receiver set. He runs about a 20-yard hitch. Wide open in between the safeties and the linebackers. Nobody converges. He's the first read. Garoppolo eyes him down and then throws a check down to Deebo Samuel. Overall, the play got 8-9 yards. That's not a problem, right? But when you talk about the tendencies of Garoppolo, that's a thing. He while he's saying one thing, his play indicates that he prefers the more conservative, the check down options kind of thing. So it's definitely a little bit of a divide between what he's saying and what really comes out on the field.
Yeah, no, and that's what we were going to dive into also, and the whole freedom thing I thought was hilarious. And I watched your film breakdown too; it was really good. And I think it's really funny that he said, "I wish I had more freedom," or along those lines, basically what he said. There were so many open opportunities to push the
Right.
ball to the field, and I don't know if he didn't see it or if he saw it and he was too afraid to take the shot. I have no idea. But that was really funny because there was back and forth where he was basically saying from the Seahawks game, like, I haven't played like that since 2017, and talking about the freedom, right? And then Kyle Shanahan was asked about those comments that Jimmy made, and Kyle was like, I never call any games differently. And I would go ask Jimmy about what he meant by that. So it kind of feels like they're just not really on the same page a lot of times. I think I remember there was a point last year in the playoffs. I think it was either after the Dallas game or after the Green Bay game, but he had the shoulder injury, or it was one of the injuries. I don't know. He had like three of them.
Shoulder injury came during Dallas, yeah.
Right, right. And basically, I think people were asking if the injury was impacting his throws. And I remember Jimmy was saying it impacted every throw. And I'm pretty sure Kyle said something like, no, that wasn't a factor. So this has been going on for a while where sometimes they'll just say the complete opposite of what each other's saying at the podium. So do you think that there is a divide and friction going on between Jimmy G and Kyle Shanahan, or really just the locker room in general? Because we've heard those rumors coming out too about which QB some people prefer.
Right. And I mean, I think a lot of people have seen the clips of Kyle Shanahan, not berating, but getting on Jimmy Garoppolo on the sidelines after missed opportunities. In my opinion, since 2018, there's been a divide on the field. What do I mean by that? Kyle Shanahan has a clear vision for his offense. He schemes receivers open because he expects the quarterbacks to hit open receivers, making it easier for his quarterbacks. Does that mean he's too involved in his offense? I don't necessarily think so, because if execution occurs, Kyle Shanahan, those receivers are getting open. Like you said in the film breakdown, we saw how many times it was almost on every single drop back. There was a certain read early in the progression that was wide open for Jimmy Garoppolo to hit the throw, which is why it's so baffling to how the game ended up as the game ended up. Since 2018, in my opinion, I don't think Garoppolo has been a different quarterback since he arrived in San Francisco. I think he's been the same quarterback, which is why that divide has been there on the field since then. But now you add in this offseason, the awkwardness of this offseason, where we talk about, obviously, Garoppolo not being a part of the team. Then in training camp, we're seeing him exiled. He's on the backfield. Everybody, the entire team is here. Garoppolo is on the backfield just throwing on his own, and fans are taking videos of this. Like the awkwardness around the team, regardless of what Kyle Shanahan says, has been there. And so the off the field divide, while I don't think we can really amount it to anything right now, because I mean, nobody's around them that much. I think the off the field divide has increased this offseason, given how the circumstances were, given how Garoppolo essentially was sacked, he was replaced, and then now is reincorporated as if nothing happened. So I think there is a bit of an off the field divide on top of the on the field divide that has been there since Garoppolo has been a 49er.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the whole locker room stuff is really weird. I just don't get it. Like when we hear that there's stories about certain veterans on the team prefer Jimmy at QB, and supposedly some are chirping around the locker room that they believe they're better off this way with Jimmy under center. I don't understand. Like I don't know if it's because some of these veterans, if this is even true, just associate the winning with Jimmy and not necessarily Kyle, because Jimmy came here when the team was horrible and they had that 5-game win streak. And then he missed 2018, and then they went directly to the Super Bowl the year he was healthy for a full season. I don't know what it is, but it's been mediocrity. And I don't understand. Like, this is what you asked for. Like, Sunday night, what happened there? If there truly are veterans that prefer Jimmy over Trey, you asked for this. Like, Trey gives them a chance to be great. We know what Jimmy is, and he's not going to develop. Like, when people say he needs time and he's rusty and that whole camp excuse, I just can't buy into that. The dude, this is 9th season in the NFL. He's been with Bill Belichick and sat behind Tom Brady. He started at quarterback for Kyle Shanahan. He's been the starting QB for a team that went to a Super Bowl and an NFC title game with many of the same players, especially like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, who are steady guys. He's had elite defenses the whole time. We know what he is. And to say that like when he said, I didn't have OTAs, I didn't have practices, did he not practice going into week 1 of the season after they restructured his contract, and then practice from week 1 going into week 2, and then play most of the game in week 2, and then practice leading up to week 3, and then all of a sudden after week 2 he didn't look that bad, and then week 3 all of a sudden, oh, I didn't have enough reps in the offseason? Like, I can't buy into that. There's just a lot of excuses being thrown around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of divide. It just feels weird. It feels like there's a different energy. Like the last few years, I felt like this team was really behind each other. Like they really had each other's backs. I wonder if part of it is like Jimmy never really wanted to be here going into this year, and this is a situation
he didn't. I mean, that's a truth.
Yeah,
he didn't. Right? Like I think I forget. It was an article that came out. Garoppolo, like this idea of him coming back was like in the middle of training camp, in the middle of August. Garoppolo's told the 49ers, we're not going to do this unless there is legitimately no other possibility of me being a quarterback elsewhere. Then I'll come back on the deal. If we're being honest, Jimmy Garoppolo did not want to come here. As much as the 49ers wanted to move on, Jimmy Garoppolo himself has made it very clear he wanted to move on with himself. Like after last year, the way that it ended, he gave his farewell speech. He was fully intending to move forward. And then on top of that, he was reluctant probably at first when approached about a restructure. It's pretty clear both sides didn't anticipate this happening. And when you talk about it as well, you talk about the Kyle Shanahan kind of Jimmy Garoppolo divide in the locker room. I don't know really what to place in the locker room. I don't think really they're like the temper tantrums that people are insinuating. I think it's more so boiled like outside of the locker room. I don't think that that's necessarily true because this locker room understands that they have a job to do every time. Maybe one quarterback, because of his tendencies, uplifts other players compared to the other quarterback. Maybe that could be playing into it, but I don't really read too much into it because first of all, we don't necessarily know what's going on there. And also, I don't think there's really much proof outside of this quarterback head coach situation that kind of indicates that players consistently want to re-sign with the 49ers. Players consistently look to take less money to come to the 49ers. It seems like a strong culture. And I think that that's been one of the elements that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have kind of uplifted into this organization since they came here to make it into what it is right now.
Yeah, my worry is definitely, I don't know if it's even possible where you can have a starting quarterback who's mediocre, who also doesn't want to be there. How can you win a Super Bowl with that kind of situation? It just feels really weird. Like that whole Broncos game, like I could kind of sense the disgust from the defensive players and some of the other players on offense. This is a great question right here. What happens first? Jimmy G throws a touchdown, or I get a mic stand?
Chris ain't getting a mic stand. He ain't getting a mic stand. We might have to wait till 2023 for that.
I think there's a better question, Beto. What happens first? Brock Purdy starts a game for the 49ers, or I get a mic stand? I think that is more fair.
And that's actually a fair question. Garoppolo might get it. I mean, I don't wish injury on anybody, but given his injury history, he might get injured this year. And Chris ain't getting a mic stand. It's a better chance that I turn 21 before Chris gets a mic stand.
That's true. Rohan might be sitting at the bar just taking shots of tequila when the Niners score a touchdown, and I'm still here holding my mic like this up to my mouth. But I just want to put this in the chat here. So we are going to have the Nick Bosa jersey giveaway toward the end. I'm going to do this exactly the same way that Mariah does it on her show. I'm just going to pick a random number between 1 and 100 on a generator. It's going to randomly select one, but I'll have you all put your numbers in, no duplicates. And then at the end, you don't have to do it now, but at the end when we do it, whoever's closest, you'll get the jersey and I'll reach out to you. But let's keep talking Niners. I'll leave that up there for people who are joining in and want to know how we're going to do that. Second thing I want to get into is the defense. This defense is so damn good. Like, I feel like of the last 10 years, it's up there. I don't know if it, like, we could look, I think like the Broncos, there's Legion of Boom, obviously. There are some, I think, all-time defenses since like I started really watching football. And I think this is one of them, but it's sad because it feels like it's just being wasted by this offense. So we all know that that's the issue, right? It's not the defense. What does the offense need to do differently, in your opinion, to get going, to make sure that we can capitalize off this and not let this potential all-time Niner defense go to waste?
It's truly execution. It's honestly, like, I think that's the one thing, especially when I saw the film, when I broke it down this past week, when we went through the offense, one key part was execution. The 49ers consistently had opportunities and failed to capitalize on the opportunities. And when you look at the two losses that the 49ers have had this season, I think execution has been the primary factor into why the 49ers lost both games. I understand it was Trey Lance's first start. You talk about the missed tight end touchdown to Tyler Croft, right? That was a clear opportunity in the beginning. Then penalties offensively limit you. I think it's not only, I'm not only talking about quarterback play. I'm talking about a variety of factors. Receivers have to make sure they make plays. This week we had Juwan Jennings obviously have a ball on a deep play that could have extended a drive. Instead, that ended up being dropped. Now, can Jimmy Garoppolo throw a better pass so that the safety doesn't come and hit Juwan Jennings as he's catching that ball? Yes, but still, it's execution on both fronts. And because we have to talk about it, the quarterback has to play better, and I expect Jimmy Garoppolo to play better. That was one of his worst performances as a 49er. And we've normally seen him regress back to the mean in his performances. Yeah, you'll see some decisions where you will shake your head, but I do expect Jimmy Garoppolo to have a bounce-back performance in Week 4 against the Rams, and I think Kyle Shanahan needs to also be consistent. It's tougher now. In a way, this game was an anomaly because it's Kyle Shanahan's first game incorporating a brand new game plan. He can't run at free will anymore. He has to strategically choose when he wants to run the football because he can't play 11-on-11 football. Obviously, we've seen how Deebo Samuel's impact has been mitigated with Jimmy Garoppolo under the fold because teams expect Deebo Samuel out of the backfield to run. What has Kyle Shanahan done to adapt to that? He's running routes out of the backfield, placing them on linebackers. We saw that twice in last week's game, and that creates a favorable matchup. But to me, the main thing right now is execution, and that involves quarterbacks making good plays, the receivers making the quarterback's job easy, as well as the offensive line not ruining drives by penalties or fumbles, because we saw that in this last game, right? You have a 1st and 20 or a 2nd and 20, you're not going to be able to run the football like you want to normally. And then when you do get to midfield, you can't have a quarterback center fumble occur that kills another drive. I think that those are the two biggest factors in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Beto's asking, does Jordan Mason get more than one snap? Oh my God, please play this dude. I don't get it. I heard Tevin Coleman's going to end up being the second running back, and I get he's familiar with the system, but bro.
Yeah, I want Jordan. Like, this is one of the places where I do criticize Kyle Shanahan in a way. I do think, I mean, Jordan Mason, every time I've seen him on the field, be it training camp, be it preseason or regular season, he has done well with his opportunities. Like, when you give him the opportunity, he plays well. I understand he might not have as good of a fixture on your system, but he needs game reps. I'm not saying it's a similar story that we saw with Trey Sermon last year, but he's not only a special teams guy, right? You can utilize him in different roles. And it's unfortunate because that Jake Brendel fumble really, I thought, killed the momentum for Jordan Mason because he got a 7-yard carry before that. Based on how the 49ers offensive line was moving, it was about to be a second carry. And you know how Kyle Shanahan said, I'm going to ride the hot hand with his backups. If Mason has a nice second carry, what do you think the 49ers do as they prolong that drive and get closer to the red zone? You're going to feed Jordan Mason. But unfortunately, momentum killed there. And hopefully he gets more as the 49ers look to impose their will on Monday.
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to see Jordan Mason play. I think that also week 4, Kyle's going to have to dig into his bag because they're 1-2. You don't want to go 1-3. And also, a bit of an ego check. You're playing Sean McVay. So I think he's going to dig deep into his bag. But what made me pick Nick Bosa? I actually have no idea. I was just at work one day and I was like, I'm going to do a jersey giveaway. And I was going to do Debo, but this was around the time we didn't know if Debo was actually going to be here. So I was like, that might be a really bad idea. So I think I somehow just landed on Bosa when I was making the decision. But what's up, Tanya? How you doing? Thanks for dropping in. Mariah said she's going to do a clearance giveaway, Jimmy G or Raheem Mostert. I'll take the Raheem Mostert. You know what you can do, Mariah? Take one of the 3 jerseys of Jimmy G that Davo has, and you can do a giveaway with one of those because I'm sure he doesn't want those anymore. So you actually have them at your disposal. Now, when it comes to the offense, one thing with Debo that I realized, like you were saying, like teams aren't really biting on the runs when he's in the backfield. It kind of reminds me, I don't know about you, it kind of reminds me when Kaepernick was running that read option. And to stop it, teams just started saying, you know what, screw it. Stop him no matter what, every single time. And that's kind of how people took, kind of negated that. And I think the big issue here that might be stumping Kyle a little bit is he did not expect Jimmy G to be here at all. He went into the whole offseason anticipating this is Trey's team, so I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add different wrinkles into this offense. And we saw a lot of the run plays where when Trey was in there was a threat that he was going to keep the ball. And
that's why the 49ers moved so well in the run game. Exactly.
And now that Jimmy's there, he's not a threat to keep the ball. And also, not only is he not a threat to run the ball, he's not a great threat throwing the ball either. So defenses, I think, are just saying if Debo's in the backfield or if it looks like he's about to get a handoff, we're taking that out of their game plan. We're going to dare Jimmy G to throw it. That's basically what they've done the last few years. That's what the Rams did in the conference championship game. They know that he's not a threat to spread the ball around the field. He's not going to push the ball down the field. He's going to throw those little quick routes, and you know what? Teams will live with that. Teams don't want to run all over them. So
exactly,
I really want Debo to get going in the passing game. I think that the yak yards are something that I haven't really seen a lot of. And if we look at just the numbers, and it's really early, but just for reference, because last year before Debo was being used as a running back, really, he was leading the NFL in receiving yards. Like people forget, he was up there with Cooper Kupp. And right now, he's averaging about half the amount of receiving yards per game that he was last year. And I think we need to see that go up because, like we said, teams are not really getting bite on this. The jet sweeps might work, but when he's just lined up in the backfield, like that play call, when you're just trying to run the clock out
at halftime.
Yeah. Trying to run the clock out. Like, I don't understand the point in that. Like, I don't know if it was like a desperation. Let's hope we can get a first down or what, but it just didn't really make sense because it hasn't been working.
And we've seen it before from Kyle Shanahan where he looks like he looks to not run the clock out necessarily, but have a double entendre, try and see if you can get an explosive play out of it. And if not, clock runs out, you're fine either way. If that's the case, though, I wanted an outside zone run. If you're looking for an explosive play, go all in. Don't sell out, have an inside zone against a team with a front that's stacking the box. The likelihood of you getting an explosive play out of that, I don't think is high. Maybe go with an outside zone, hold your cards. Because, even if you lose 2-3 yards on a play, it's not going to hurt you. They have no timeouts. You're going to have the same result anyway. And instead, they ran them up the middle. I didn't necessarily like that game, that call. If you're looking for an explosive play, I thought there were better ways to do it. But, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Who has a better game, Debo or Ayuk? I think Debo because he's playing the Rams. He's had a slow start. I always remember when Aaron Donald was like, who? And I just think that Debo ever since then has just taken it very personally. I think Debo has a game. I don't know about you, Rohan, on this one.
I think both do. And I think Debo Samuel, the 49ers are starting to Kyle Shanahan's really starting to realize how to use him in a way differently. Because like I said, his run impact has been mitigated. So what do the 49ers need to do in a way? They either have to have 2 running back sets so that, with Trey Lance, he was I'm against the notion that Kyle Shanahan was using him as a running quarterback. And we can maybe talk about that later. But with Trey Lance, you have 2 rushing threats in the backfield. With Jimmy Garoppolo, you only have 1 if you have 1 running back lined up. So what do? They have 2 running backs on certain sets. We saw that at times where they have 2 running backs or they go empty, because the 2 running backs obviously provide a rushing threat from either side, forces defenses to hesitate for a second. And also what that can do is if you're running a route out of the backfield with Deebo Samuel, he's going to be placed on a linebacker, because a cornerback, unless it's zone coverage and the cornerback has the instinctual ability to pick up whoever's coming out of the backfield, he's going to be placed on a linebacker. We saw it on the throw where Jimmy Garoppolo underthrew Deebo Samuel and he was open. We saw it again with Kyle Juszczyk. Kyle Juszczyk had a nice sideline catch. I think he was going up against Bradley Chubb on that play.
Yeah.
You create these mismatches, and that's I think the new way to use Deebo Samuel. If you're going to use him out of the backfield, understand that his impact might be mitigated unless you kind of hide the look, or use him as a receiver.
Yeah, and I want to get to this question too from Kevin. This is kind of interesting. So, what about using Ray McCloud in the running game and using Deebo as a decoy?
You could. I just wonder, how do you scheme that play? Is it going to be an end around? Like, because if you're in a shotgun look and you have Deebo and Ray McCloud as your 2 running backs, it's going to be harder to at least get to the edge, especially now without Trent Williams to maul. You need, like, the one issue, right, in a way with this 49ers rushing attack is everything has to be to perfection for a play to work. Every blocker, the pullers need to kind of work. The tight end needs to get there, and you need to have good blocks from guys like George Kittle, guys like Kyle Juszczyk, in addition to the one-on-one blocks, the complementary blocks from the offensive line, for these plays to work, especially if you're hitting the edge. So that's the thing. I wonder how you utilize Ray McCloud. Will you line him straight up out of the backfield, because that doesn't give him the running start, or do you maybe potentially do an end around, which might be a little more predictable with Ray McCloud?
Yeah. And that's another thing I wanted to get into, is a little bit about the play calling. I know a lot of people have been really critical of Kyle. I try to, like, I don't want to just cape for Kyle. Like, he does do questionable things. Like I mentioned, that play call going into halftime. There have been some questionable things he's done. I was going to originally say, like, how much blame do you assess to the offensive struggles to Kyle? Is it the O-line? Is it Jimmy G? And we can still talk about that. But also, do you think Kyle's starting to feel, maybe for the first time, legitimate pressure as the Niners head coach, as Mike McDaniel goes to Miami and they look like a solid unit, although that whole Tua stuff is a mess. But other than that, they look like a solid unit. And now we're sitting here with what's supposed to be an offensive guru as a head coach, and we're like in the bottom 20s in certain offensive categories.
In the scoring offenses, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll address this question in different ways. First, starting with the Kyle Shanahan pressure part, I don't think he's feeling any pressure. For being honest, he can't get fired this year if the 49ers even have a losing record. I don't think he gets fired. I think there's more reason maybe for the 49ers to fire Lynch if there is a discourse between the two. I think John Lynch is the first to go compared to Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan's the guy that they keep, and they might have a guy he might be more comfortable with if there is a discourse and if the 49ers have a losing season, that is. But I don't think Kyle Shanahan's seat is hot. When you talk about Kyle Shanahan and assessing blame, at least when you talk about the Broncos game, I thought Kyle Shanahan did a pretty good job. There were a couple of questionable plays. At first, initially, I had placed a good amount of blame on Garoppolo for the safety, and I still do, because it's as a veteran, you have to understand where you are on the field. But understanding the play, talking with a couple of people, it seemed like it was a wide leak. It was a very aggressive play call for the situation, because you have to allow the play to develop. It's the play that Trey Lance missed Tyler Kroft for the touchdown, where you have to wait for that tight end to develop. Now, what I would have liked was Jimmy Garoppolo to still hit Brandon Ayuk, the first read, not the first read, but the first open guy looking straight there. Instead, he tried to hit the first read on the play, let the play develop. And so that's where I place blame on Kyle Shanahan in a way. You can't necessarily have such an aggressive look, especially in such a tight game, in that situation, knowing how heavily the Broncos have tried to pressure you in that situation. So I'll place the blame half there. But in overall aspect of the game, I think Jimmy Garoppolo just didn't execute in this game. But as for the part of Kyle Shanahan where I place the blame, I think his play calling's been pretty solid. Even in the run game, I think his play calling's been pretty solid. But his choice of quarterback, that's all on him. Kyle Shanahan, the issue that he's had, right? We talk about, we praise him, right, for doing what he's done with below average quarterbacks. But when you talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, he has chose to have Jimmy Garoppolo. Back in 2017, everybody knows how Kyle Shanahan obviously passed on Mahomes, passed on Deshaun Watson to get Kirk Cousins, and then didn't even settle for Kirk Cousins. Instead, went and traded for Jimmy Garoppolo in that year. And I don't know who wanted it. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to speculate. That's not my job. But like, he wanted Jimmy Garoppolo. They passed on a better quarterback in Kirk Cousins, who we could have likely gotten in the offseason, and instead paid Jimmy Garoppolo the biggest contract in NFL history. Then after that, 2020 comes. Rumors about Tom Brady. It seems like Tom Brady would have very much welcomed a return home to San Francisco. The 49ers stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo despite him not having any guaranteed money, really, because that was, I think, the third year that he was into his contract. So it was either that or like minimal guaranteed money, and you could have traded him too, right? And then they finally make the move for Trey Lance, 3 first-round picks. Kyle Shanahan finally goes in a different direction. But I think the quarterback situation, you can blame Kyle Shanahan for that because he's chosen to stick with mediocrity. He's made it work. They've gone to an NFC championship in the Super Bowl, but he's chosen to stick with mediocrity for a long time. And that's where you can place the blame for him because there's a reason execution isn't happening. It's because you have mediocrity at quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is an average NFL quarterback. And so to me, yeah, I think that's a place where you can place Kyle Shanahan's blame on.
Yeah, no, I agree there, and I'm going to get to my point really quickly. But first, we have to talk about the boning that Ray is giving Kyle based on the penalty yards. Yeah, no, that was I've
gone back and forth on this. I want to hear what you have to think. Yeah.
I understand why he made that decision, and I get it. People want Kyle to be more aggressive. I think that he trusted his offense
saying the only
more.
Blame, not the only bone.
we can leave that context
I like
out.
bone. I like bone.
I like the boning part. I think that sounds better. But I think that I think he trusted his offense to do more than he ended up getting, and that's why he thought, we can stick with this. I think he thought in that moment 3 points is not going to be very bad. The defense is playing really well. We should definitely score more than 10 points tonight. I think that was kind of his mentality. But I think as we start to get later in the season, or if the playoff stakes start to get a little tighter, because right now they're sitting at 1-2, right? Like that's why I think week 4 he's going to call a more aggressive game in certain moments, just because you can't fall to 1-3. So now I feel like we might start seeing these more aggressive decisions from Kyle, but I think he really just expected Jimmy Garoppolo to not have one of the all-time most boneheaded plays in starting quarterback history. I've never seen that live. I saw the Dan Orlovsky one, but this was another level because not only was it a safety, he threw a pick 6. Like,
that was really
you know
bad.
what? Give Jimmy Garoppolo credit for having the intangibles that just can't be quantified by saying, you know what, I'm about to throw this pick 6. Let me negate it by just stepping out of bounds so that I don't allow a touchdown. Incredible leadership.
Yeah. But on this play, yeah, I mean, for me personally, like you said, I can understand it. I think I've gone a little less bullish on the idea because you had a defense that was working. But I mean, we've seen Russell Wilson cook, right, on those 3rd and long situations. The problem isn't even Russell Wilson converting a 3rd and 18. The problem also is a penalty. You don't want a penalty to occur, be it whatever penalty that might end up in a first down that gives them the momentum. But again, one thing that you blame not blame, but one thing people have called out Kyle Shanahan for is coaching scared. I saw a graphic where the 49ers are one of the worst teams in like go for it situations.
Yes.
I forget exactly what it was, but it makes sense. The 49ers punted on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3 near midfield. They've been a conservative team, and the supposed lack of trust that Kyle Shanahan doesn't have in his quarterback is on Kyle Shanahan because he handpicked that quarterback and stuck with the quarterback, right? So that's kind of how I think about that.
And that lack of trust is what I actually want to touch on, because this is one thing we were actually talking about in the space earlier today. We were talking about with Jesse, and Kevin was in there. I wish Kyle instilled more belief into his players. Like we were kind of talking about Shanahan and McDaniel. And one thing Jesse pointed out was the difference between both of them is that McDaniel, the way he is with his players and his locker room,
like Tua,
is
you mean
totally
specifically,
different.
right? Yeah.
Especially Tua, but really anybody, but especially Tua. Like all the stuff he's been saying, like I've seen McDaniel do interviews, and I feel like he's got to be lying, but he's doing it anyways because he just wants to instill confidence as quarterback, saying, yeah, he's the most accurate passer I've seen. Like when he says stuff like that, even though we can all kind of sit there and be like, come on, man, the most accurate you've ever
I
seen. But
guess.
at the end of the day, instill belief into your quarterback, and he was letting him throw the ball. It's amazing what happens when your young quarterbacks throw the football, but also it just feels like Kyle has like this really like hard ass type of mentality where like everything's earned. Like, and a good point Jesse also brought up was when Jim Harbaugh was the coach, the way he would go slap the pads and the helmet of like Alex Smith and Kaepernick, like that connection I don't really see with Kyle. And I feel that lack of trust just as a fan watching it at home. So I wonder what that dynamic is like in the locker room among these players and guys like Trey Lance or Jimmy G and how it affects them. That's one thing I really wish Kyle was coached a little differently. I don't know if that's like intentional or what, but I personally wish they would just show a little more belief, him more specifically. But I think it's interesting. You said that John Lynch could be closer to getting fired, and I wonder, people have been calling for that one. A lot of people, especially during the offseason.
Yeah,
Adam
I mean,
Peters.
I
Adam
wouldn't be
Peters could definitely step
surprised.
into that.
Oh, with Peters stepping up, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't like. There was an idea I floated way earlier in the offseason about Lynch being moved up and then Peters being there. I don't think that that's fathomable. The reason is it's too much of a power struggle in that case
Yeah.
because you're essentially giving more power to Adam Peters while ceding, not necessarily ceding John Lynch's power. I don't think that that's fathomable. It's going to be one or the other. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, right? And not even Adam Peters. But there are certain candidates that I'm sure Kyle Shanahan would like, right? If Adam Peters does get a job elsewhere, a guy that's been linked to the job that I think Kyle Shanahan has a good relationship with is Louis Riddick. There could
Yes.
be other candidates, and I mean this is a topic for another day because not obviously I don't think anything happens this season, right? It'll only happen in the off season if anything happens, and again that's contingent on several factors, but yeah, I don't think Kyle Shanahan his job is at all in jeopardy,
Yeah.
especially because he has the extension until 25.
Yeah, it would have to be a total dumpster fire for one of them to get fired. But let's dive into the week 4 matchup. So we're playing the Rams. We've won, what is it? 6 of the last 7. I don't even remember. 6 of the last 7.
All the last 6 regular season, and then we
Right.
lost obviously this year, so 6 to 7, right?
So looking at this matchup, and obviously Trent Williams is gone, so that's going to change things. I don't really know who we expect to try to step up there. Jalen Moore, please. I do not want to see this guy take the field at left tackle. But how do you see this matchup this year compared to last year? What are you expecting going into this game on Monday night?
Yeah, I think roster-wise, they're different. The Los Angeles Rams, people don't necessarily.
Lambs?
Oh man,
You called them the Lambs. Rohan slipped up. He called them the
no.
Lambs.
The Los Angeles Rams. The funny thing is, oh boy, Twitter about to go crazy. But no,
Yeah.
the Los Angeles Rams obviously have had a bit of a change, a shift, right? Not necessarily in their culture, but with their roster. Andrew Whitworth is no longer there. Joe Noteboom, their new left tackle, a guy who's been fairly hyped up and has been a fairly solid backup for them for the past couple of years. Now is third in the NFL with 11 pressures allowed this season. He hasn't necessarily been one of the better left tackles there. That transition hasn't gone as smoothly. Overall, the offensive line hasn't looked as good. Rob Havenstein having a bit of a down year to at least begin. No Austin Corbett, no Brian Allen at center. You have new pieces. I think it's David Edwards at left guard. I think Brian Allen is out for the game. I forget. I think at center. So you're having new pieces. And on top of that, it's a new right guard as well this year. They had a competition in the offseason between Logan Bruss, who unfortunately tore his ACL, and forget his name. But there's another right guard there. But point being, new offensive line. And they have struggled at times. We saw it in training camp. We saw it in the regular season a little bit. And the 49ers have a strong defensive line. But I think you can make that argument for the 49ers as well, right? A newer offensive line. I think the 49ers offensive line is better, even right now. I think I said that they'd be a better unit at the end of the year, but I think they're better right now. Still, the Rams got Aaron Donald, but no Von Miller anymore. So it's a bit of a new matchup kind of thing, which is beneficial given that Colton McKivitz is going to play instead of Trent Williams at left tackle. But overall, I think a majority of this dynamic is the same. You got the same head coaches who have figured out each other's systems in a way, having played each other so much with similar quarterbacks to last year and a similar infrastructure and system. So we'll figure it out. We'll see how this game goes, but at the moment, I think the 49ers are trending upwards despite the amount of injuries that they've faced.
I do too. I still like this matchup because I look at it. If I look at last year, I know they got Bobby Wagner, but you can't equate a good linebacker to a good edge rusher. It's just a different
Yeah.
impact in the game. Not having Von Miller, that's hurting them, and also not having Odell on offense to open things up. That chemistry between Stafford and Allen Robinson is just not there. So it's really just he really only wants to throw to Cooper Kupp, and
Yeah.
he's throwing a lot
Exactly.
because they can't really run the ball. And I think that if they can't really run the ball and the Niners and their new look secondary this year with their pass rush, I think Matt Stafford's going to be a sitting duck for a large portion of the game. I think that bodes
Mhm.
well if he's out there slinging it because he's also mistake prone himself. He does turn the ball over, and this is the best defense he's going to have to face so far this season, in my opinion. So I do like them in this matchup still. My worry mostly, obviously, is at left tackle. And just Jimmy. Like you got to have a bounce back game. And that's not even asking that much. It's funny when we say like, Jimmy, can you please play well? We're really saying like, can you just play average? Like just take care of the ball. And I got to say, if there's one new thing, I might have to guarantee one interception to Bobby Wagner. That is the only new wrinkle in this matchup. I might have to place my own bet that it's going to happen at some point in the game.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really do like this matchup still. If you won 6 straight, obviously, I think it's like Shanahan just kind of has McVay's number in a way. Even last year in the championship game, it's not like they got blown out. Like they were
Right.
winning. They were pretty much in control of that game. It was
They
17-7,
blew a lead.
and they
Yeah.
blew it. So I do still like this matchup, and Hufunga's been balling out, so that's going to be cool to see how he matches up in this game against the Rams. You really just got to slow down Cooper Kupp as much as you can. I
Right.
don't know how you would like to see them cover him. I know some people want Ward to just travel with him. I don't know your thoughts on that. How you'd like to
Charvarius
see
Ward.
them cover? Yeah, Charvarius.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah. So when we talk about it, let's look at the defenses because you talk about Cooper Kupp. And generally, I'm speaking generally first. The 49ers have allowed 2 big receiver games in the past 2 weeks, and they
yeah,
have done fantastically defensively. Right? You talk about week 2. Tyler Lockett had like 11 catches and over 100 yards in that game. You talk about week 3. Cortland Sutton had 8 catches for 97 yards. Overall, the 49ers defense gave up 9 points combined in those 2 games. The 49ers, the point I'm making, the 49ers have done well in forcing shorter gains. And so while receivers have bigger gains, the offense for opposing offenses just can't move as well, which has obviously benefited the 49ers defense getting them off the field. And that's something to note. On top of that, you look at the Rams defense, I think they're tad a bit overrated right now. So far on third down, they've been struggling. They're the 23rd best team in opposing third down conversions. They've allowed a third down conversion on nearly 50% of opposing tries. I think the actual number is around 47.3% in the first down. While the 49ers defense, Swansong just put it out there, they're first and 3 and outs, right? The 49ers defense has shown a propensity for getting quickly off the field, while the Rams defense has allowed teams to prolong their drives with the amount of third downs that they've given up. Now, if the 49ers can play disciplined football, limit the amount of penalties and turnovers, like you said, they should be able to move the ball despite their putrid third down numbers last week. I expect them to regress to the mean given the matchup. And when you talk about the Rams, their biggest loss was Von Miller. Their biggest addition was Bobby Wagner. Now, Bobby Wagner is a great addition for the run game, and I think it's shown so far the Rams are allowing only 3.8 yards per carry. But in the passing game, the 49ers, I think, should still be in a better shape. Bobby Wagner isn't his old self in the passing game, at least. And that's not a slight at Bobby Wagner. He's still a good player, but I think that he isn't his old self in the passing game. I don't think they have a linebacker really that is proven super capable to defend as well in the passing game with the with the understanding of man coverage and zone coverage. And the 49ers exploit linebackers better than any team in football. We saw it last week. Kyle Shanahan targeted Josie Jewell a good amount, even on that last Jimmy Garoppolo sack that he took. What did he do? He lined up Brandon Ayuk in the slot where Josie Jewell had to cover him on a one-on-one route. And so if teams want to create pressure, if teams want to blitz, if teams want to stack boxes, what's that going to do? create favorable matchups, one-on-one matchups all across the board. We saw that in the Denver game. And that also means if you place a guy out of the backfield or if you place a guy maybe in the slot, he's going to go against a linebacker, which is favorable for the 49ers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. Swan song. So whoever wins it, I'm gonna order it in your size and just ship it directly to you. So good question there for anyone wondering. Yeah, no, I like I said, I really do like this matchup. I think it's also perfect that if the Niners were going to start 1-2, which I hate that they always start slow, I think it's perfect Shanahan's facing Sean McVay because, like I said, it just seems like he has his number. I think this is a game where, like I said, if he's going to dig deeper into his bag, I think we do see Jordan Mason a little more. I know people are talking about Tevin Coleman. I know Marlon Mack might get in the mix, but I think Jordan Mason, considering he was there in camp and you were there at camp too, and you can talk about this if you want about how Jordan Mason looked during camp. And obviously we all saw him in the preseason. I think that's someone where if Jeff Wilson goes out there and struggles a little bit, or if he had like a bad day in practice this week, I could so see Shanahan giving Jordan Mason some run. And, if he has a nice run, give him another. If he has another good run, give him another. Just kind of ride that hot hand because Jeff Wilson did fumble at the end of the game there. And I know it wasn't his fault that they lost the game, but the way Shanahan is, he might hold that against him a little bit going into this week. So I'm really intrigued to see what changes they make offensively because obviously that needs to be
Tevin
the
Coleman.
biggest adjustment.
Tevin Coleman better get called up probably.
No.
I think Marlon Mack probably goes inactive for this game, and Tevin Coleman probably gets brought up, and you have your three there. We'll see though, because Marlon Mack didn't get a single touch last week. It was interesting that they called him up because I think you only get 3 call-ups per player per season now with the new rules from the practice squad. Marlon Mack is, I think he's the one on the practice squad, and he got elevated for the game. But he doesn't play special teams. He played 3 special team snaps. That's only 11% this past week. He's not a special teams player. Jordan Mason's the special teams player. So if you're elevating a back, I'd expect that back to get a good amount of volume because your special teams running back is already on the active roster.
Yeah, no, that's true. And Raymond brings up a good point. Bobby Turner's back with the team.
Yeah.
How does that bode well for Jordan Mason or not? And I don't think they really said, I don't know if they really said what his role is or what he's doing. I know he's helping with the offense, but they haven't really specified exactly what his duties are yet. So I want to look into that over the next few days. But let me see here. I saw something else in the chat. Oh, it was just Peter saying it guarantees that it will not fit him. I don't know, man.
To Raymond's point real quick about Bobby Turner being back, does it bode well for Mason? I don't necessarily know. I think Anthony Lynn has shown a good amount of support for Jordan Mason, and yet the role has been as the role has been. Bobby Turner has never coached Jordan Mason, right? He's a rookie, and I think it's just I don't think it necessarily bodes well for anybody over anybody. Turner has just been he when you talk about TDP, when you talk about Jordan Mason, both of those guys Turner's never worked with, right? He wasn't there this offseason because of his surgery. So he hasn't worked with either of them. He's worked with Tevin Coleman more, and he's worked with Jeff Wilson Jr. more than those two. But I don't think that necessarily places a big role, given Turner just came back. I don't think that really is a big role. I think it'll still be relying on Anthony Lynn for kind of like that kind of development.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I got to tell you, man, the Tevin Coleman thing, it makes me nervous. And you know what it makes me nervous about. These injuries, we are one high ankle sprain away. Didn't Danny Gray just get hurt? Didn't he hurt his hip?
Hip injury. Yeah, DNP today. I saw this earlier. I think I forget who asked this, but it was KP from Niners Nation. Where are these injuries coming from? Like, that's the injury diagnosis. No, like Danny Gray, are you telling me he got injured in like what? He probably played like 10 snaps probably in the game. I'll check it up right now. Are you telling me he got injured on one of those snaps, or is he getting injured in practice and we just don't know? Danny Gray played 6 snaps this past week. Are you telling me he got injured on one of those snaps? Or like the Ark Armstead injuries there, but where did Javon Kinlaw get injured? Was it in the game? Was it lingering from the previous week? I know he got dinged up the previous week, but he seemed like he was playing regularly in this past game. Where are they getting injured? And like I don't know if it's necessary, but you hope that they come out and say that at least.
Well, Rohan, I'm gonna tell you this: with these injuries, he's coming. Every day is getting closer to coming. Pause. But you know who I'm talking about. Mohamed Sanu, baby. He's coming back.
Mohamed
He's gonna get a phone call. It's gonna happen, and we're gonna
Is he
watch.
still in? He got cut, right? He's not
He's
with
definitely a free
Miami right
agent.
now.
He's definitely free. Yeah, he definitely got cut. I don't think he ever got picked up, so I'm pretty sure he's available. So I'm
It's
telling you, man,
bad
with
that
all those injuries,
the
it's coming.
Miami Dolphins picked River Craycraft over Mohamed Sanu. Yeah, he's a free agent.
Yeah, and he caught a touchdown last week. You know how sick that makes me to see Trent Sherfield, River Craycraft just producing, and we're
Yeah.
struggling to get a first down against the Denver Broncos with all pros on our team. That makes me sick to my stomach to watch the South Beach Niners. Okay, but here's what we're going to do next. So we're going to get into our keys to victory. I have 3. You can have however many you have. But over the next like 10 or so minutes, put a number in the chat between 1 and 100. You cannot have any duplicates as anyone else. So just put in the chat, and I'm going to randomly generate a number. Whoever's closest to it, I'll reach out to you, or you can reach out to me, and we'll coordinate getting you the Nick Bosa jersey. So we'll do that all the way through to the very end of the show. Let's go ahead and start putting the numbers in. I'll do my best to keep track and catch all of them. Just make sure you don't have duplicates. But Rohan, keys to victory against the Rams. What do you got?
All right, so we can go since there are 3. We can go 1-1-1-1 in a way. I'll start with the first one. I think it's the one that's glaring most to me, and I talked about it briefly earlier. Third down conversions. 49ers went 1 of 10 on third down conversions last week.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was a good throw from Garoppolo to Juwan Jennings, but I broke down all the third down conversions. There was a variety of failures on execution, be it with the offensive line, be it with the quarterback play, be it whatever reason it might be. There were a variety of execution issues. Like I said, the Rams right now are 23rd in opposing third down conversion rate because they've given up third down conversions on nearly 47% of tries. That's a significant amount. The 49ers hopefully should get back to the mean to where Trey Lance had third down conversions in week 1, going 8 of 17. If you get 8 of 17 on third down conversions, that's a pretty good rate to me. And also, as an add-on to that, third down conversions, what do? They prolong drives. 49ers, I'll get to my second key after this, but third down conversion rate, that's where I'm starting. What about you?
Okay. Yeah, Swan, I see, let me double check something really quickly. Swan, I see yours first on your end. So Ray, pick a different number. That's what I see is I have Swan at 5. Yeah, my first key, get Deebo Samuel in rhythm. The running plays are not working. I think it's got to be done through the passing game, or unless you can find new wrinkles and new ways to get him involved in the running game. But listen, this dude is a huge reason we got to the playoffs. He essentially carried our offense last year. He dragged us there, but we have a better team this year. That's the way I look at it. And I don't want it to have to turn into Deebo has to drag us to the playoffs again. I think we're better than that. The defense has improved. I do think we have some extra depth at receiver. I know Danny Gray's hurt, but also Ray McLeod. I do like the idea of getting him involved a little more wherever they can. Juwan Jennings stepped up toward the back end of last season, and George Kittle's back, and I want to see him get involved more. But Deebo Samuel does need to get involved either way. He is your first team All-Pro. You did just give him a big payday. You got to make sure that you're getting him involved in the passing game. I don't know how that is, but most important things, you got to get him in situations where the yak opportunities are there. And of course, Jimmy needs to hit those throws, but get that part of the game going because you are kind of struggling and you have lack of depth at running back. I don't want that to mean you're just forcing carries to Deebo Samuel, though. So get him involved in other ways. That's my first key. I don't know. What's your second?
Yeah, so I was talking about third downs and how they prolong certain drives, correct? And so to me, what kind of goes hand in hand with that is time of possession. Because if you're prolonging drives, you're forcing the opponent defense to stay on the field, which means your defense gets a bigger rest. So far, the 49ers have done pretty damn well, which you would insinuate from the stats. The 49ers have, statistically, the 49ers have outgained opponents pretty much. You saw it in the Bears game where they outgained them by a significant amount of yards. And even in the Broncos game, Jimmy Garoppolo surprisingly threw for more yards than Russell Wilson. And I do believe the 49ers had close to or a little more rushing yards than the Denver Broncos did in that game. They do well, and so far they've had a time of possession of about 33 minutes per game, whereas the the Los Angeles Rams are 25th in possession or average time of possession. They do give up average time of possession of 31 minutes and 35 seconds so far. And so what does that mean? The 49ers control that kind of part of the game. If the 49ers can kind of utilize the formula that they've used in the previous matchups to win this game, which means win on third downs, get time of possession, then they can control the game pace and they can dictate kind of how this game goes. I think that that's a huge key to this game as well. Time of possession on its own, I don't think necessarily, but when you tie it in with prolonging drives with third down conversions and potentially turning drives that end in field goals to touchdowns, I think that that's where the big impact comes from.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. And keep Matt Stafford, keep Cooper Kupp off the field when you can. Remember, everyone, last call, we only got a few minutes left, so make sure you have your numbers in between 1 and 100, just no duplicates. So make sure you don't have the same as someone else before you. My second key to victory is whoever's playing left tackle, which I believe it's going to be Colton McKivitz. You just need to be steady. You can't go out there and just be terrible. I don't like, obviously, no matter who's stepping in, you're not going to fill in for Trent Williams. You're not going to be able to make up for the production that he gives them, but you just need to not screw up. That's the way I see it. Just be serviceable. Don't, miss a stunt. Don't miss your assignment in pass protection. Jimmy G is not a mobile guy, and McGlinchey has struggled at times in pass protection. We've seen certain plays. It would be really, really just a nightmare if both sides of the line are just collapsing in the pocket, because Aaron Donald's already going to have to be dealt with in the middle. So I'm assuming you're probably going to have to double him because he's going up against some inexperienced interior linemen. So if you're on the left tackle side and Aaron Donald's in the interior, you got to hold your own on whatever you're seeing out there. So mine is steady play at left tackle. Not great, just steady. Be serviceable.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair, right? That's what you hope for. Obviously, the 49ers got it from Colton McKivitz back in week 18 last week, has played in a crucial time. And so leading to my third one, I think, you could obviously go with the regular win the turnover battle, because that's going to be important. Matthew Stafford has thrown 5 interceptions. The 49ers obviously haven't necessarily been a turnover prone team, but Jimmy Garoppolo has made some head scratching mistakes that have resulted in turnovers. But instead, I think I'm going to go with defensively. I'm going to just focus on one specific player and have him try and continue to dominate his play. That's Talanoa Hufanga. The reason is Hufanga has excelled in that robber role, and Cooper Kupp, what he likes to work the intermediate side of the field. He's really good in both the short, intermediate, and deep, all 3 facets of the field, but he likes to work the intermediate part of the field. Talanoa Hufanga has erased some receivers on in-breaking routes, especially when Fred Warner's tasked elsewhere. Talanoa Hufanga has done a very good job picking up, utilizing his short field burst. And so, to me, I think he's going to be important, because while I don't think that he's just going to be, the 49ers are going to just say, yo, go one-on-one against Cooper Kupp. I don't think that's a recipe for success. But with the way that they utilize their defense, I think he's going to be a key factor in helping limit the impact that Cooper Kupp has on this game as one of the players with the 49ers defense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right. I'm going to get into my takeaway, or my final key to victory. And then after that, we'll go ahead and do the giveaway. I think it's only right, though, I do my final giveaway
no.
We're the way that the show this way, huh? Here we go. I'm going to do this in the Rohan voice. So you guys don't really know that I filled in for Rohan many times. You just don't even know.
Yeah, he fills in on my show a good amount. Like a lot of times you'll see my camera go off sometimes, and that's when I'm just saying, yo, C Polo, you got to hop in for a minute.
Yeah. All right. Well, my third key to victory for the San Francisco 49ers in week 4, I just need to see good quarterback play from Jimmy Garoppolo. He needs to have a bounce back game. Not looking for him to, go off, throw for 400 yards and throw a touchdown and go full Italian stallion on the LA Lambs. That's right. I called them the Lambs and I did not slip up. I just need Jimmy Garoppolo to just, not step out of the back of the end zone and throw a pick 6, maybe not throw in a double coverage, see wide open guys down the field. If he can just be serviceable and not be completely ass like he was in Sunday night last week, I think the Niners have a great chance at victory this next Monday night. But that is my last takeaway. I had to do it at some point. There was no way I was going to go this whole show without doing it. But
save the best for last.
Exactly. But let's go ahead and do the giveaway. So I have all the numbers down, and the number that this generator came up with is, I don't know if you guys are able to see this, but it's 46.
All right, 46.
I think, let's see,
we have
I think it's Tanya. With
the 55? Okay. I think so too.
Oh, that's so close, because Mariah picked 35 and Tanya picked 55. So that was
but because it's 46, it's one off. Damn.
One off. Wow, that was close. Tanya, you got Nick Bosa jersey. That was close. I'll reach out to you, Tanya. Congrats. And thank you to all of you for supporting and just being here and tuning in. You know, you don't have to be sitting
this
here
family
on a
here
Friday.
this family here is great. Yeah,
it's awesome. We get a lot of support in the Niner community, and you know, I do my shows on Fridays, and I know a lot of people like to go wild on Fridays, and you know, you don't have to be sitting here for an hour, but you do anyways, and I get it. I'm gonna get plastered after this. So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to you, Tanya, in a few minutes to get that all squared away with you. But thanks, Rohan, for jumping on the show. This is awesome. I'm sure we'll do more down the road. It's funny. I actually told Marco in his mentions, I was like, dude, if we ever did a show, it would be called the Marco Polo Show, and that would just be hilarious.
Yeah, so you guys have to.
It's probably gonna happen.
You can just fill in for me on one of our episodes, and we'll just flip the name from 49ers Red Zone to Marco Polo again.
Exactly. But thank you for joining on Friday. Go ahead and tell the people where we can find your material. I mean, everyone here might already know, but tell us your socials, what you got going on right now.
Yeah, so I mean, you can search up my name. That's my YouTube channel. Obviously, we're trying to get back in the groove. Had an episode earlier today with Sunil. We'll probably go live after Wisconsin Badgers play. I got that coverage tomorrow. So after the game, we'll probably go live and talk some more 49ers. A quick preview again before the game starts. Hopefully, Marco will come on for that. We'll figure it out. But Chris, always appreciate you, obviously, telling me to come on here. Always appreciate talking with you, be it on Spaces or be it here. And yeah, always appreciate the chat, man.
Absolutely. Thank you to all of you. And go Niners Monday night. We'll see you on the next show and see you in Twitter Spaces. But have a good Friday night,
seeing everybody. A rant from Chris, or we're going to see some I told you so's?
You're going to see a rant from Kevin if we lose. Okay, but we'll see you all.
It's going to be lovely.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you all. Go Niners.
Gonna throw it wide open. Touchdown 49ers. And to Draymond. Hurry. Watch Stafford go deep, and Rodgers were able to do week 3 in that matchup. Toss to Jones, and big middle linebacker Fred Warner made the stop.